Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. Hey, I got a special guest today, and Craig Perra is a very, very interesting human being. Craig works with addicts, specifically those that are at the professional level, executives that are addicted to porn. They're addicted to drugs and certain vices that they haven't been able to beat. Well, Craig has full humility because Craig lived that life. And Craig talks about living that life in how it wasn't until he found a language that he could understand that he could sit in and get his arms around and attack these addictions in a more effective, efficient way. So I'll tell you what, get yourself a virtual cup of coffee, sit back. You're going to hear a very interesting story. And for many of us, we know someone with these addictions. And I think that's what's going to make this special. So sit back, like I say, enjoy yourself, and let me introduce you to Craig Perra. Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome everybody to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. I tell you what, I had lunch about a month and a half ago with today's guest, Craig Perra. When we had lunch, Craig, I just said, this episode has to happen. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thank you, man. Privileged to be here. I had a great time at that lunch too. So great to see you again.
You too. So you know what, Craig? I grew up I could just tell a really tight friendship at that meeting. But as I mentioned, there's 2 hours out of the year I really don't care for you, and that's when my Illini play UConn, and we had just come off a bad loss to you guys right there.
We did, and how great was I? I didn't gloat that much. I certainly didn't want to rub it in. I mourned your loss with you. Yeah, we do have
You
that.
really did. It was a magical season for UConn, and I know that's not what we want to talk about, but I'll tell you what, I know you had just lost your father, a few weeks before, and you had this special bond with your dad as from UConn, and when they made that magical shot against Duke, I know that was a special time for you, even mourning the loss of your dad. So that had to be a pretty special moment.
Very special. Yeah, one of those moments you feel in your body.
It is.
I felt the loss in that moment, and I felt the joy of having that connection, that intimacy around sports. It wasn't around emotional stuff, but we had that connection, and that connection was special.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's get into I tell you what, one of the reasons I just loved our conversation. Now, Craig works with, elite entrepreneurs, business people, athletes. Craig works with them in one of the most difficult situations possible, and that's working with addictions, working with pornography, working with drug addictions, working with sex addictions. And Craig, this is a pretty unique, at least it is to me. I don't know if you feel there's a lot of people in this field, but you're in a very unique setting. How did you end up working with these high-performing executives, these entrepreneurs, these athletes? How did you end up working in an industry that works on these addictions?
Well, I got into the industry out of my own repeated rock bottoms over decades. Like this was born, Stan, in my massive failures. 15 years ago, I had been fired by 2 multi-billion-dollar companies where I had leadership roles. I was acting out, sex, porn, lying, out of integrity, and really was in a job that I hated, and I sabotaged the whole thing, tried to hurt myself, got hospitalized, and got out of that hospital and said to myself, I got to do something different. I've been doing a lot of work on myself, a lot on my trauma, a lot on the pain, a lot on the addiction, but very little moving forward. I felt like I was always running away from something. So I was an impatient, and I'm just fired acting chief compliance officer for $1 billion company. And the guy in one of the groups that I was in one of the meetings I was in, the teacher, Stan, said, does anybody, I got hospitalized, I hurt myself, I'm addicted to drugs, I'm addicted to sex, I'm in the inpatient treatment center, my doctor says, you go or I make you go. So I said, okay, I'll go in for the 3 days, I'll do my 5150, that's what they call it in California, that's why it's the name of the Van Halen album, 5150. And something the guy said in the group completely changed my life. He said, does anybody here know anything about risk management? I almost choked on my tongue. I started laughing because I realized that I had institutional knowledge in how to prevent bad things from happening. That was my life for many, many, many years. And I didn't know where that seed that was planted, what it would grow into, but it was in that moment that I went, I've been doing a lot of work on myself. It didn't contain, there weren't deliverables, there weren't developmental milestones, there weren't metrics to measure success, there wasn't accountability, it wasn't future focus. What do I want to accomplish? Like, you need a business. So there's another theme, right? Just like a business needs to know where it's going, you need to know where you're going. Science proves that. So I kept having these epiphanies, like, man, I got to start running my life like I run my business. Not crazy, not too much, but there are certain principles there that I could employ. And ultimately, that business-minded system, what became the mindful habit system, is what I started to train to people. And through my podcast and through, people connecting with the fact that I was an executive, I was a professional. And then as my reputation grew and went on Steve Harvey and went on Katie Couric, that's when I started to work with the professional athletes and folks higher up on the food chain, in Fortune 10 companies, Fortune, 50 companies. I do very well with those guys because, one, I can hold space for them. I know crazy and I can see through. I can see into. You have to be able to hold space because they'll run all over you. Like, this is the process. Here's what we're going to do, right? You paying me. I'm in charge. And so I had that gift, and the combination of that gift and that insatiable curiosity in the system, that's led me to where I'm at now, working with, people who run hedge funds, people who sit with heads of state, clients who were just consulting with Secretary Bennett over the course of the past 3 months. So people that want to operationalize their success. So anyway, that's a long way of saying that's how I got here. Personal tragedy and failure, and realizing inside I had these gifts, I had these frameworks that could apply to behavior modification. I'll never forget when I realized, like, change management for business is a thing. I could apply those same principles to myself, and that's when a lot changed for me.
So you had this epiphany, and this this individual asked you about risk, and your dopamine, everything just starts wiring and firing. How long at that time, because you were still in treatment, did it take for you to start to develop? And I don't want to lose sight of the mindful habit system, which is something that you have patented. It's your system. How long did it take for you to develop the mindful habit system?
Well, my first answer to that is a lifetime, because it continues to evolve. But I started helping people about 9 months after that rock bottom. My therapist, who had a history of hiring clients, my counselor, said to me, have you ever thought of helping people for a living? And I said, your stock just plummeted, buddy. That's the dumbest advice I've ever heard in my freaking life. And I'll never forget. I said, what do you want me to be, a life coach? Are you crazy? I'm an executive. I get my W-2. I get paid every 2 weeks. I work for a company. And it was such a preposterous idea, but he kept sending his clients to me that were struggling. And I was able to move them in ways that he wasn't. And eventually I realized I had to go out on my own. Working for your therapist is usually a terrible idea. And so, but that's where it started. I saw that I had this gift in seeing people in ways that brought them tremendous value, and holding space for them to experience emotions, to experience shame, to have this freedom to say anything that they've been keeping inside. And part of that, Stan, has been my story. My rock bottom was so messed up, was such a disaster, that creates a lot of vulnerability, because people will say, well, if you were addicted to bath salts and having sex with hookers and got fired from $1 billion company, showed up to work intoxicated, as the compliance guy, one of 2 people in the offices, I can be safe too. I can be vulnerable. I can speak my truth. So that rock bottom story and has been tremendously helpful too.
So, you made a great point there. You said your therapist said you could do things that he or she couldn't do. Talk to me about that. What is it that is your secret sauce? And within this answer, I always ask a lot of my guests, "What's your magic trick? What is it you do that, y God, empowered you to do that looks normal to you, but it's magic to me?"
Yeah.
What's your secret sauce?
There's two secret sauces, both of them related, because without one, you don't have the execution. So I always had a gift in building training for people. My lawyer brain, and when I started to work with these PhDs when I was at one of my companies who prepare the training, like I prepared training at a very high level with incredibly talented experts who come from a McKinsey framework mind, creating the outcome. So I had that skill. My gift, though, is helping people feel seen.
Mhm.
And through that, helping them feel seen, help them understand themselves, helping give them safety to go into themselves, to walk into that shadow,
Yeah.
to walk into that darkness, that place that they stuff down, that they hate. That's definitely my gift.
So, it's gotta be extremely humiliating for someone who is addicted to pornography. They're in a very high profile position. What is it that makes them, other than probably the Armageddon that you went through of losing your job and everything else, what causes them or how do they come to the realization, "I need Craig in my life"? What
Yeah.
from your client base, what has to happen?
Yeah, easy answer. There's two entry points. One is the man has someone else in his life telling him that he better do something about this problem or he's out. Some version of that. It's an external. Now, once that occurs, the justifications for the behavior melt away and there's a lot of shame. Like, oh, the guy's like, oh yeah, that does sound a little messed up. That sounds a lot messed up. Wow, I lied about all that. That can never be good, right? Men of integrity now realizing that they've been profoundly out of integrity. That's a powerful moment. So one is it is an externally compelled situation. Someone discovered something, and someone is very angry and very hurt, and issued some form of an ultimatum. The second is guy sinks to a new low. Because in order to get that charge, to get that release for the medication to work, and I think about porn, alcohol, drugs the same way. Medication. What is it medicating? What is it doing for you? So what happens is that it's harder to get that release, that escape. So you escalate. And eventually it sinks to a new low. A red line has been crossed. Red line one, I said I would never, it's just porn at my computer. Never am I going to act on it. Guy goes to a massage parlor. Right? I crossed the line. Or guy who says it's just going to be porn, it's not going any further than that, is now texting someone on his phone or is now paying for it. So there's always a line that gets crossed where someone said, I'm not going to go this far. I've gone this far. I need help to find myself again.
So let's just say I identified myself in this category and I came to you. What's the first thing we do, Craig?
The first thing we do, the first thing we do is figure out why you're here, why you want to not be this way anymore. What is your direction, purpose, future self, and values? That evolves over time, but having some clarity on where you want to go and why this work is, you're even making time for it and paying for it, is massively important. Stan, it's even more important for the men who come to me steeped in the 12-step model, not because that wasn't helpful, but because it's very reactive. It's not do the thing. Not doing the thing is celebrated for good reason, right? So it's where do you want to go? Why do you want to stop? Why do you want to hold yourself to a higher standard? So direction, purpose, future self, and values is step one. The second thing, though, is instead of asking men how the behavior has harmed them, Stan, I asked them to identify how the behavior has helped them.
Mm.
Because all behavior is need-seeking behavior. This isn't some magic moment in your life where all of a sudden you're numbing, coping, and escaping. Like, this is doing something for you. This is managing libido. Let's just use porn, for example, giving you an escape, giving you a release. It's the sole reason why you don't drink too much to regulate your central nervous system, because you've got this. It is medicine. It is serving a purpose. It's meeting a need. And until people if you don't understand that, you don't understand the system the system and the problems within the system that you're trying to solve. This behavior is meeting a need.
Yeah, we talked at lunch. Satan's not playing fair. The amount of stimulation that we have, whether it be computer, whether it be digital, whatever, is so exponential now than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And you even talked about athletes. And there's a business behind the business of seducing them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'll first say, to your point that you made about more stimulation, we need nothing short of a revolution. Doesn't have to be a violent one, but to recognize, and the study just came out 2 days ago, confirmed the introduction of cell phones impacted birth rate. It impacted birth rate. Humans, what are we wired to do? To reproduce. This is changing that. So second point, they've also had studies. The earlier exposure to social media, the higher rate of suicide. So I'm starting a revolution. I want you to know that that's what it's going to take to shut those things off. Shut them off. They're bad for you. So I want to say that. The second thing is that a newspaper did a very comprehensive article on how these men are preyed upon. There was a list of things that you need to do, like, if he has affairs, don't talk about it. Be there for him, fold his laundry, give him anything he wants sexually. Coaching other women on how to better land these people. And it just exists on a spectrum too, Stan, because people want clout, people want fame. They're targeted. The conversation we had is, I know a lot of people don't have empathy, but it's hard. It's hard. Can you imagine people knowing when you left your hotel to get breakfast and along the way target you to get your attention? The guy cheated. He's such an asshole. How about a little grace? To err is human, forgive divine. And so, yeah, there's industry might be too strong of a word, but it's organized. There are tips around it. There are people talking about it. And technology gives the opportunity to be extra predatory about it. So,
yeah. So I mentioned, I have a friend that, I'm worried about, and, 7-figure type person that he's lost his marriage now. And he disguises well during the day, but, I've got some drunk calls from him and almost suicidal calls. I'm very worried. And he's been in and out of rehab now multiple times, walks out after 3 days and, knows more than they do. And nothing ever works. But yet, Craig, you have a system. This seems to be very, very effective. How is your system so much more effective than say what my friend has walked through? And I know you don't know the different places he's been, but how is yours different?
And I'll say, what the strength is. That's the best way to say it. There's a way to turn that competitive energy, that insatiable drive, the same one that drove their success is also the same one driving their shame. There's a way to turn some of those innate drives and desires on themselves and approach it from a performance perspective. And so, one, that's why future self is so clarity. Like, is this where you want to be? Is this impacting you? You're going to die. Do you feel good about yourself? No. And pardon for oversimplifying it, but developing that clarity on where they want to go and using language that they understand as executives, deliverables, developmental milestones, metrics, accountability, and the framework, like the biggest difference between what I do and what traditional 12-step modality does is the addict is demonized in one place. It's not the good thing. It's absolutely the terrible thing. In fact, it's a disease. And that brotherhood and sisterhood is amazing. This is not a critique of that. This is noting different. In the self-leadership framework, the addict part is trying to help. The addict part is trying to help. It has a job. It has positive intentions. It has been part of his numbing, coping, and escaping strategy since he was a child. And all that family of origin stuff that therapists do, and mom and dad and that programming, you've got the container for that. The addict is the part where all that shit, shame, trauma lives. And so that gives people a framework gives them an accurate, neurologically aligned psychological framework that creates a distance between you and the part to step into that Holy Spirit energy, self-leadership energy, self-energy, Jung, Freud. They all had this name for this self, and lead that part to create positive outcomes. And so that's the difference. It's not a fight. It's not a fight. It's leadership. Because you understand human behavior. All behavior is need-seeking behavior. That part is trying to meet a need. It was trained to meet that need since childhood. And I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm not going to demonize it anymore. Demonizing it is where the demon comes in. So it has a faith perspective, a faith shift too. What I'm going to do, let me continue along that theme, is ask, what would Jesus do? I'm going to love that part. I'm going to lead that part. I'm going to look him in the eye and say, hey, I know what you're trying to accomplish, and there's a different way. Wouldn't that different way feel better? Grace, empathy, compassion, love, and leadership is the solution in my model.
So you talk about your spirituality helping you to coach. What about your client and their spirituality? How much does it play? Let's just say that either they had it and they've lost it, or they don't have it at all.
Yeah.
How do you insert spirituality into the treatment system?
Where I'm able to help in that regard, Stan, is being open about my own personal journey and struggles, because I learned later on in life the priest that I loved and who took care of me and hugged me and warmed up to me and loved me later killed himself because he got accused of molesting children. He was grooming me. So I have an inherent institutional resistance. And I went atheist, I'm agnostic, the whole journey, Eastern philosophy, studied Buddhism, learned it all. And I remember a client, like working with the client, and I'm like, I know faith is important because the data says it's important, the science says it's important, and I follow the science. And I'm seeing like this guy create his own custom faith that, framework that he had was like, yeah, I'm going to do what Jesus would do. I'm going to model that behavior because I believe the kingdom in heaven is within. I said, son of a bitch, that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't have to throw out all those wonderful lessons around grace and healing and forgiveness and do unto others and charity. Like, I didn't have to throw all that out. And then I started to say, well, there's this psychological model, the internal family systems model, which has these faith principles like built into it. Like here you've got this, scientific framework, and Jung had it, Gestalt had it, that says there's this center, there's this core that's special, that isn't all the programming, isn't all the crap, isn't all the trauma. And I've accessed that center. And I remember explaining the scientific, like reading from my cheat sheet, the scientific definition of that center self part. And my client said, that sounds like the Holy Spirit.
Ooh.
And I went, son of a gun, son of a gun. What am I doing? Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I bought a book with all of the words that were attributed to Jesus in the Bible and said, you know what? I'm not much of a history guy. I'm not sure what happened, but I absolutely want to be more Christ-like. I absolutely want to have more love and compassion. And I saw it working, treating these parts of me that my whole life I hated. And the solution was something I learned in third grade CCD. Love thy brother, and is loving the parts of me that needed it.
Yeah, this is interesting. I had this conversation, I think it was my wife and maybe somebody else the other day, because, I'm kind of on my third time through the Bible, and I've noticed, other than Jesus, everybody else had their hangups too. You know what? They all had problems, and all of us are flawed. And so it's interesting that you say that. And the one thing that's going through my mind right now too, and I really don't want to exit the Jesus thing because I can stay there all day long, you know that. But I find that interesting. But I also want to know, so when somebody comes in, I'm sure that everybody's different, Craig. And is there a stop and a start date, or is this a journey? And what does that look like for your clients?
Yeah. So yes, a start and a stop date and a lifetime journey. So the way I found that appeals to executives and leaders is having a structured plan. And so the person has to be able to undergo that training, right? Some people are too banged up emotionally, mentally, where they're just not a fit. They need to go inpatient. They need to work with the therapist, stabilize the mental health issues. But it's a beginning, middle, and an end. And the reason why I stand, because I knew I needed that to measure efficacy. Like I wanted to build a training that lays the foundation for key habits and belief system that are necessary for long-term self-control. And so I said, okay, we're going to do this week, this, that week, this, that. So I wanted to have a beginning, middle, end around that. And from the first lesson to the last lesson, I am very clear. Nothing I say to you, client, is once and done. There's nothing I'm saying, oh, look, I learned something now. Client has a big breakthrough. I say, great, celebrate it. And then I go, okay, you want the bad news? This doesn't mean jack, 3 months from now. We're humans. We're habit machines. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? So I've always been obsessed with sustainability. And I realized to accomplish that, I have to help them install the systems that are going to ensure or increase the chances dramatically that you're not going to fall back into old patterns. That's a lifetime journey.
Wow. Look at that. Yeah. So once and you also have do you have a master class? Do you have something where I think, a lot of your clients come together, and is there like a group situation where, they get to hold accountability?
Okay. There are two things. I just had a conversation with a potential business colleague who's building a program, and people get great value in the short term. Everyone's like, yay, this is great. But when he follows up 3, 6, 9 months later, the gains are gone. Same thing in exercise. So community and accountability are critical for the aggressive pursuit of a great life. They are mandatory. They are not arbitrary. And some clients don't have it in their lives. They outsource that to me. So I build a container for them to connect with other men and to be vulnerable, to get together. We throw retreats every year to get together, be supportive, look into that dark closet where you stuff all the shame and things that you're afraid to talk about. Step into the shadow, be vulnerable. So, absolutely, that long-term support and community for men and women, I think, is massively important. We need, most of us need it. Most of us need it.
Yeah, building a tribe, building accountability. That's gotta be really, that's gotta be a huge step. That's gotta take a lot of courage, Craig, I think, to walk into a room, even if it's a Zoom call or if it's a retreat, and looking at other guys with the same addictions and having that conversation. I can only imagine how powerful that retreat's gotta be.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful, Stan, because here's what they say. Oh, you did that? Oh, like, you what? Okay, I beat you. But and this is what we need as men to recognize: healthy sexuality is a journey that we're all experiencing. How can we expect us regulating one of the most powerful forces in human nature and not talk about it and not expose our shame and the shitty things that happened to us in childhood? And that, even if it wasn't shitty, the poor training that we had to channel this most powerful force. And on the performance side, you need accountability. You want to go far, fast, go alone. You want to go far, go with others. So these are high performance principles. And that's how I've always fashioned the program, Stan. It's not about beating your addiction. It's about being the absolute best version of yourself, because I'm sorry to break it to, and I say this, I'm sorry to break it to you, but that is the only thing I found ever works to interrupt this habit that you've been doing since you were 7 years old. The cure is the aggressive pursuit of a great life. It's my ultimate cliche. It is clickbait. I surrender. You got me. And it is my truth. It's the only thing that works.
As you say, God made sex for good, not for evil. It's us that went down that road, and obviously there was some help from the demonic side. But so I know you're like me, and I love all my clients equally. I just have a special relationship. But if you were to, obviously without names, is there a success story that just kind of comes to mind of just saying, there was a situation I just didn't know if it was really going to work out. And now you look back and you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud."
Yeah.
Is there a situation?
Yes. So I have a 30-day money return policy, Stan, because I feel so committed to people that I don't want to work with someone who are not going to create great results. I don't enjoy it. They need another resource. I didn't catch it in the beginning. My screening didn't catch it. I didn't realize it till three weeks later. So that's very important to me. Very important to make sure the right people are doing the work. And I had a client who was also drinking, also cheating, also watching porn, also watching gambling, and absolutely some underlying mental health issues. And I remember saying to that guy, I said, listen, I don't know if this is going to work, because I'm honest. Like, I'm really worried that you're not going to have the capacity to get value because you're so banged up, and the right move might be stabilizing first before you can join the team, or even before you can get value from having a one-on-one coaching relationship. And it was dark. And so, but that turned out to be one of my best clients that I've ever had. Someone who has created great financial wealth for himself in the tens of millions of dollars. Someone who had the courage to leave a relationship where his needs weren't getting met and find a new one where everyone he talks to was like, "Oh my God, you're so awake, you're so kind, you're so not reactive, you're so not ego, you're so grounded." And to see the ripple effects of the thousands that he employs, the impact of him in the community, because he's very community minded, and to see that grow and philanthropy grow and more people who need it getting help and service they need. And what hit so close to home is as a father and how he's leading his children to break these cycles, picked up in the south side of Chicago in one of the darkest times and one of the darkest moments in that community. and to see those ripple effects, and you too, right? You know, it warms my heart. It makes me feel good about myself. I feel significant and important that I was able to help somebody to create all this great joy and love in the world. So Jay will first letter, because he's probably listening and he knows how I feel about him. But Jay is just such a beautiful man, and to see us have that perfect alignment and get those results and sustain those results when they started on such a not sketchy, but on such a shaky foundation. Like, dude, I don't know if this is going to work. But having those honest conversations and keep our focusing on what he wanted to achieve, it was the right thing to do. We did it, and we're close friends to this day, and have a beautiful friendship.
Craig, what advice would you give if somebody says, I don't really think I have a problem, but when is it a problem? And if they're listening to this, they say, I don't think I have a problem, but now they're realizing, oh, shoot, maybe I do.
Yeah, you ask great questions. And you just serve it right over the plate for me. And we didn't plan this, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't plan this. I asked them, is there ever such a thing as a small integrity issue? Because these are men who are of faith, many of them, who pride themselves on their integrity, know how important it is. They've fired people for far less than the habits that they're engaging in right now, for far less. I've been fired from the office of the general counsel because I told a stupid white lie to my boss, Stan. I deserve to get fired. I was out of integrity. Got fired, stupid little lie. Like, I didn't tell that person. I did tell that person. I wasn't sure if I told that person. Fired. Why? Because even the thought that even my declaration that it's a little thing was evidences my ignorance. There's no such thing as a small integrity issue in leadership. There isn't. And so because some of this because in my experience, this behavior is in secret, hiding the extra drinks, hiding the porn, hiding the trips to the massage parlor, highlighting the affair, hiding, right? They're hiding something. That's the entry point. Not the shame around the behavior, not, oh, this is bad for you. Here's this study, here's that. Because it's almost always in secret. I love asking the question, is there any such thing as a small integrity issue? And that usually gets them thinking, and the answer is no. The answer is no. Anybody who has managed people at any remote responsibility has learned that lesson, has learned those lessons. So
one thing that is kind of on my mind is, so somebody's listening to this. They don't have the problem, but they have a loved one that does. Is there a wrong way to say, you need to listen to this? You need to hear Craig? And is there a right way? How would someone lead somebody and say, would you give this a shot, when typically that person doesn't want to own up to the behavior that they're having?
So most people are in that state of denial because what it represents to them, it represents their freedom. It's the one place in their life where they have agency and control. It's the place where they relax. It's the place where they numb, cope, and escape, where they regulate their central nervous system. And it's been going on for a long time. So there's a huge attachment to it. So attacking the behavior often does not create the desired outcome. Sharing the values that you have as a partner and what you want to create in your relationship and your expectations around a relationship, your boundaries, but not just your boundaries. It's why you're unhappy. You're unhappy. I'm not, you don't light me up anymore. I don't feel like a priority. I don't feel loved, and I don't feel safe. I think there's secrets going on, and I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be that person. I want more out of life. I want you to want more out of life. So Is there any right way all the time? Absolutely not. But when you can speak from a place of your truth, he can't argue with that. He can't argue with that. Your truth is your truth. But when you argue, hey, you're addicted. No, I'm not addicted. I function every day. Look at my paycheck. Look at the people I lead. Stop it. Stop it. That's a stupid thing for you to say. I'm improvising the defensive guy, slipping into character. Not that I ever connect with ever being defensive. Of course I do. Very easy character for me to slip into. So he's defensive around the behavior. And so to go head on, usually it's going to create the crash in the overwhelming majority of instances. There does come a point where it becomes an ultimate boundary. I'm not tolerating anymore. I've caught you doing something. Fix it or get out. It's the ultimatum. That's often what drives people into help. But if you don't want to wait that long, and that's what I teach people, you don't have to wait to the rock bottom. Why make things harder for ourselves? Let's you wouldn't do that for a business problem. Let's wait till it rots the place. It's foolish. You wouldn't do that. So that's how they can catch it early, by speaking their values, their truth, what they want out of the relationship, how this impacts their opinion of them, and how it impacts their safety, that there's lies, and that's not something that you want to be part of.
So, Craig, you have a podcast. Talk to me about the podcast, because I'm sure I could listen to you all day, and I think others could too. What's the name of the podcast, and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, thank you. The podcast is Patterns of Power. I'm obsessed with patterns because I'm obsessed with habits. It's all patterns. Every choice, every decision, every place where you are out of alignment is a pattern. And so what I do is help men leverage those patterns to step into their power, hence the name Patterns of Power.
Wow. Somebody wants to get in touch with you. How do they do that? How do they do that, Craig?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Stan. Go to my website, www.mindfulhabitmastery.com. There's a number in the footer. You can text me. Those messages go right to me. Or you can, review my free download. I have a self-sabotage assessment that I've been getting some really good feedback on, and I'll give you that, Stan. I believe I'll make sure you get that link, and people can click on it in the show notes and learn what systems in their lives are lacking, and what the impact of that might be.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. I think that's so powerful. And I was going to ask if you had some kind of a diagnostic tool or something, and I should have known you would. You think of everything. So it's this, Craig, this is just, as I told you, I could talk to you for hours. I just so much enjoy your company, your friendship, and everything. Is there one thing you would want to leave the audience with today? Something we didn't talk about, something that you believe that would really add to this conversation?
Yeah, I want to emphasize your sexual energy is one of the most powerful forces in human nature. Power must be honored and respected. So I want to say that. And the second thing is that fight that you're having with yourself is making it worse. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. Yeah, that internal friction that you're having, that source of stress, that source of adrenaline and cortisol, it's not the way to solve the problem. There's a way to do it. We talked about the way to do it. Research parts work, research the internal family systems model, research the mindful habit system. There is a neurologically a faith and neurologically aligned psychological model that may profoundly change your life. That's out there.
Craig, you're a wonderful human being. I wish I could work you out of a job, but unfortunately, I think nature has told us that there's always going to be these challenges with men and women out here in today's world. But thank God that you're a safe place to come to. I appreciate it. Any final word?
Embrace your power of choice. Thank you for having me, Stan.
Thank you, Craig. I tell you what, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship. And I really think this has been a great conversation. So reach out to Craig. I will have a little outro here in a second and make sure that you know exactly, repeat where to get in touch with Craig. But I tell you what, this is a real deal. This is a real issue that's facing, uh, you know, life today as we know it. And so please, thank you for listening. And I'll tell you what, as I always sign off, may you live a rich and intentional life. Thank you, everybody. Peace out. Love you. Take care. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Inspiration Podcast with Stan as we talked with Craig Perra. You know, this one is just a really special episode because as I look at our society today, it concerns me. It concerns me with social media. It concerns me with the ease that it is to create, and take on addictions such as pornography, such as alcohol. Trust me, the algorithms and the sellers out there know what we're doing before we know what we're doing. And so when I listen to somebody like Craig and he talks about that he has a process, he has a way of helping people, they wouldn't come to him and pay the money if it wasn't working. This is a big part of my life. Again, you know that I talk a lot about intentionality. You know that I talk a lot about we have to get life right, not just career. We have to get it right in the relationships in our life. We have to get it right in our own well-being, our sleep, our nutrition, our meditation. How do we recover in life? Life is very busy. We have to get it right as it relates to our purpose and our spirituality and our mindset. And that's why we work a lot on that in the Leadership Lab, which is the mastermind that I have with leaders and with group coaching. We have to have intentionality. So I love what Craig said today. It's so special. And please check out the show notes. Check out Craig's information. Drop him a line. So approachable. And he'd love to talk to you. And again, I love talking to somebody who's lived that life and can speak from it with a lot of knowledge and experience. So anyway, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening. And we've got some great episodes coming up. I've got another solo cast coming up where just me talking about leadership, talking about intentionality, and talking about how we get our life put back together with intention and create a legacy, not just at work, but also at home. May you all live a rich and intentional life. Take care and have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.